Hi, and thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be going through how to save money if you're a manufacturer on your oil ingredients if you're looking to save money but not cut your oil quality. I'll tell you right off the bat, there is a way to do this, so we'd love to walk through it with you. My name is Hannah. I work with Centra Foods. Keep in mind you can find us on Twitter. Our handle is @Centra Foods, and you can also find us on Facebook. We'd love to meet with you there. Now, we're going to be going through 4 different primary ways today for manufacturers to save money on their ingredients. And every concept that we're going to look at today, the goal is to keep your oil quality the same so that your end product is exactly the same, but you're cutting your ingredient cost. It's just adding to your bottom line. So we want to help you do this. I'll go through them first, and then we'll dive into detail on each one. The first thing that you can do to change your oil is packaging. Second will be delivery, how it's delivered. The third idea to save money is direct deliveries from the Mediterranean. And the fourth is using forward contracts. So let's first dive into the first one, your packaging size. Your packaging that you choose can have a big impact on how much money you end up spending on your ingredients. Even if it's the same quality of oil, how it's packed is going to affect the price. If you are receiving your oil in drums, you're not alone. Most manufacturers actually are ordering in drums because they're an easy, smaller size to use. The easiest change across the board today is going to be switching from drums into totes. So it's the same layout of the pallet. Instead of receiving 4 drums, you're going to receive 1 tote. Off the bat, you're typically going to save about 2 cents per pound on your oil, whether they're bag-in-a-box or cage totes. Both of those will help you save quite a bit of money actually in the long run. And it's a really easy change to make. If you're already using drums, it'll be really simple for your production line to switch to those totes. Just keep in mind, you do want to have a forklift or a pallet jack if you want to think about that change. Number 2, the next packaging size that you can switch to is actually the next size up. It's a much bigger jump, but if you're using enough oil, it's totally worthwhile. It's actually switching to in-house storage tanks where your oil will ship either in a flexi tank or a tanker and be delivered and pumped into your in-house storage tank. So you're not going to have any smaller packaging that's sitting in your warehouse. It's going to be a very large storage tank. If you don't already have a storage tank set up, typically the initial investment is about $30,000. We only recommend it for companies that are using about 250,000 pounds or more per year. If you're using that volume per grade per year, you're going to see a savings. After your initial investment, you're going to see a return on that investment within about 6 to 18 months or so, depending on how much you use and what grade it is. So it's a fast turnaround. It's definitely worth the investment. Depending on what type of oil it is, what the market is like, normally you're going to save about 10 cents a pound compared to the totes. So you can do your own math, actually, just times 10 cents a pound by what you use in terms of the pounds per year, and you can see how much your savings could be. So now the next thing that you should keep in mind is how is it delivering? Say, for example, if you are getting drums, we want to caution you against getting just 1 drum at a time. If you are getting 1 drum at a time, say you're using 1 drum a week, it's much better to purchase 1 pallet per month and just lengthen how often you're getting your shipments. And that way, you're going to save a lot of money on shipping primarily. So, for example, if your shipping cost is $300 to ship to you for a full pallet of 4 drums, if you ship just 1 pallet, depending on the carrier that you use, it'll either be $300, the exact same cost, or say something like $200 or $225. It's not going to be 1/4 of the cost just because you're shipping 1/4 of a pallet. So you can save a lot of money just by always shipping full pallets across the board, and just know you'll have extra inventory in-house and you can use it a little bit later. The next thing that we would recommend for people to save money on is to look at direct shipments from the Mediterranean. This is a different system than having your suppliers ship you LTL shipments, which means less than truckload, just a few pallets at a time as you need them. And it is a worthwhile idea to take a look at. And a lot of manufacturers don't feel like they're ready for that kind of a change. But a lot of people actually are, and we'll give you some of those volume breaks where it's worth starting to look at. So first, a direct shipment from the Mediterranean means that instead of shipping from your supplier's domestic site, they would actually ship you a full container, which is typically 80 drums or 100 drums, depending on whether it's a 20 or a 40-foot container, direct from overseas, from the Mediterranean. So that would deliver straight from there, right to your warehouse. So you're cutting out all of the LTL shipping costs from your supplier's location to you. You're also cutting out any inherent overhead, storage costs at their facility, and the inherent shipping cost to get from the manufacturing site in the Mediterranean to their location as well. So you can save quite a bit of money by making this change. Normally I see somewhere between 10 and 30 cents a pound, depending on if you're also changing your packaging size at the same time. You can get containers of drums, of totes, of the flexi tanks, so any different option depending on what you decide is going to be best for your facility. You can still do these direct deliveries. Now these direct deliveries, they kind of overlap because they are somewhat similar to if you were going to import yourself or if you were going to work with a supplier overseas. That's kind of the same thing. And so that is an option. It can be tough, especially if you don't have someone who's nominated exactly for that job to do that job. Keeping up with suppliers overseas, meeting with folks. How do you know that they're really reputable and that they know what you're doing or what they're doing, that they are going to be sending you exactly what they say that they are? It just takes a while to build those manufacturing and those supply relationships. So that can be tough right off the bat. The other thing is the U.S. has really high standards for quality control, the documents that you're going to need to receive. Most places overseas actually don't have those documents offhand. They're pretty tough to get. And so that is another disadvantage to working with someone overseas. The other tough thing is just you want a supplier that you can depend on, that is going to be there, that understands the same language, that really understands what you're up against. So there are some reasons to work with a supplier here in the U.S. and still receive direct deliveries rather than try to do it yourself. You definitely need at least a part-time person taking care of that role, just between customs and purchasing, making sure that everything is coming smoothly. It does take quite a bit of time, so a lot of times the money that you would pay them, it actually works out. You can work with a supplier here and it will actually end up saving you money. So that's just a little bit of background. Those direct deliveries, another great option for you to think about, and we can chat with you more about your specific situation. Another option for those is called a local delivery program, and what that means is that, say you're located in Florida. Well, Central Foods does not have a distribution center in Florida right now, so we can actually use, or you can use, a local distribution warehouse where your oil is stored. It will add a little bit to the cost, but still it can save you quite a bit of money rather than having to store all of it at one time. This local supply program is a really good thing for customers that are using a lot of oil, but they're not having a whole lot of storage space in their facility. So if you've got really tight space, you need just a couple pallets at a time, but you really like this system, it's a good thing to look at. And if you take a look at our webinar, we kind of talk about some of the packaging costs and the shipping costs you're going to save doing this direct delivery program, comparing each different option, whether it's coming from the Mediterranean, doing a local supply program, or coming from your supplier's facility. So good numbers to look at. Another thing to look at is if you use a regular volume over and over and over each month or each week, we can actually set up auto delivery. So you've got a container delivering between the 10th and the 20th each month, and you don't even have to think about it. You place a PO for 6 containers at a time, and we'll just kind of roll them over, and the planning is done for you. So yes, these direct deliveries do require you to sit down and do some planning with your supplier. It requires that you really rely on them or on us as a strategic partner rather than just a vendor. The advantage in the long run is that you're going to save a lot of money and a lot of time, because you're not placing all these POs and following up with them and receiving incoming inventory every couple days. It's going to save your whole team and you quite a bit of time. Another option to look at is what's known as forward contracts. Now, any type of oil that you get, typically that's going to be a commodity item. Commodity item just means that the price changes by the minute, by the hour, by the day. Olive oil is essentially a commodity item. It doesn't work quite like, say, wheat or soybean oil or other items like that in the US that are run off the Chicago Board of Trade, but it is essentially, in the international sense, it is a commodity. The price changes on a daily basis, so when you're doing forward contracts, it's going to be based on the quote that you received that day. So you're going to have to make a decision and lock in fast. But the advantage is that it can lock you in with a steady price over a long period of time that you can depend on. It also helps ensure that, if you need a particular taste profile, or you need to make sure, that supply is going to be low, you need to make sure that you have that inventory and you can be guaranteed it and you won't come up against any trouble getting inventory in. That'll also help. So these forward contracts, if you're using enough oil, they're definitely worth talking about. Typically, if you're using somewhere around 3 to 4 containers a year, that's a good time to start looking at forward contracts. For some oil, during some market times, it requires that you look at more at a time. And forward contracts, all of it, it's just like stocks. It's based off the current market. The olive oil market is always fluctuating. Sometimes it's really great. Sometimes it's not so good. And so you're going to want to be really strategic about when you lock in and for how long. And we will help you walk through that process. And any supplier that you're working with should help you walk through that process and understand when and why you're locking into a commodity contract. So again, just to review, these 4 different things, they can have a big impact on your final price. You do not have to lower the quality of the oil that you get to get a better price. You can really look at these logistical factors that make a big difference in the long run. If you have any questions, you want to do a consult to talk about some of these and see how you can put them into place in your business and how much it would save you, we're happy to do that with you. We're also happy to answer any questions that you've got about these different systems, and we'll walk you through the process. Looking forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.